Greetings and salutations. My name is Mr. Lucky, Master's Advocacy and Political Leadership, PhD student, Bachelor's Sociology and Science, degrees in Education, Law Enforcement, and Paralegal Studies. Today I'm going to be talking about lessons in community organizing, and I'm going to have a focus on Black Lives Matter, poor leadership, and Black Lives Matter. If you are a young person, an activist in the community, I hope you get something out of my lesson in community advocacy. Now, I hope you take what I say, Black Lives Matter activists and other activists and or leaders in any community, any organization. You can take what I'm going to give you today as constructive criticism and use it to improve your leadership skills. Before we get started, I'm going to take a cheap plug and let you know about my books. My book, Black Man with a Gun. You're going to love this book, Black Man with a Gun. My second book, Liberal Racism Creates the Black Conservative. Both books are available. If you email me at my email address below, I will get you a copy of the book, signed copy of the books, of course, with a small fee. Okay? So let's get started. Lessons in community organizing and advocacy. Now, I'm really talking to Black Lives Matter. I see the young activists blocking traffic on the highways, marching through the community. And at the end of the day, you're not really doing anything. You're not organizing. You're not changing anything. Black Lives Matter, in my opinion, could be a very good movement because you cannot have a movement without something that motivates, that activates the movement. The movement has been activated by police brutality, killing of unarmed Black people. Now, we know that not all Black police officers are out there, for our community similar to white police officers. We also know that we have a lot of Black police officers that will stand strong against white police officers that are committing these types of hateful, racist acts in our community. We also know that there are white police officers that are very good police officers in our community, coming to our community every day, working hard to make it safe for law-abiding Black people. That is what Black Lives Matter is not able to bifurcate between good officers and terrible officers in our community. I hold, similar to the military. When I was in the Army, if you did something wrong, you got a dishonorable discharge. When police officers are involved and proven misconduct, they should also receive a dishonorable discharge from the police department. In doing so, dishonorable discharge, those officers will likely never get another job. So let's get back to Black Lives Matter. And again, what I'm saying can be used in any leadership, any young person. You're out there want to be an activist in our community, I'm going to give you some basic to think about, some basic concepts to think about. The sociology of leadership. There is a direct causal relationship between sociology, social sciences, and good leadership. Black Lives Matter, you fail to understand and use this basic concept. You have to be able to not only organize, but you have to be willing to evaluate and document your activities. When I look on the highway and I see Black Lives Matter shutting off the highways, marching up and down the streets, no justice, no peace. Okay, who is really organizing that movement? And after the movement, who sits down and evaluates and documents what happened at the end of the day? The end of the day, everyone goes home, go the separate ways. You get all these people organizing on Facebook. Let's meet here, let's meet over there. Then all y'all come together, and at the end of the day, no one is evaluating, no one is documenting what happened. There is really no organized activity, which is why you're here 1 hour, you're over here the next hour. You're not communicating with elected officials. You're not building the capacity with other people to get things done because you fail to evaluate your activities. You fail to document your activities, and you're not really organized. That's how you appear. You're not really organized. Any good organization must have capacity. And this is where Black Lives Matter, you're failing. You refuse to build capacity. You can't have everyone against you if you're organizing. You can't have everyone against you if you're trying to advocate for the community. If you don't have politicians that support you, if you don't have local government that support you, if you don't have church groups, other groups that support you, you're not going to get anything done because you don't have capacity. Like Martin Luther King Jr., Medgar Evers, they had capacity. Lawyers, okay? They had planners. They had people who could go out, plan a march, legal people that could take care of the legal responsibility of that march. They had people who could direct traffic, specializing in directing traffic. They had people with different skills that gave them the capacity to deliver a meaningful march, and not only have the capacity to deliver a meaningful march or a movement, but the capacity to have people that could relate and talk to politicians, judges, other people that was needed to make that march and that movement successful. Black Lives Matter, you don't have that capacity. You don't have the capacity. Everybody's just out there doing what you want to do, and you don't have the capacity. So you are not doing anything worthy of community organizing and really advocating for the people you're trying to advocate for. You don't understand the role of an organization versus who are the leaders of your organization. So you have an organization you call Black Lives Matter, but who are the leaders? I remember reading something about Black Lives Matter, and one of the people said, "We don't have leaders. Everybody's a leader." If you have a organization and there is no real direct leader that people can focus on as a leader, How can you have an organization? Who are the leaders? I don't care what you are doing, community activists, working within an organization, any entity, you have to have a clear leader. Look at entities. Any entity you want to look at, Black Lives Matter, young people, you have directors, chief executive officers. You have to have a leader. Everyone can't be leaders. You cannot be out there trying to organize, trying to have an organization, trying to advocate for marginalized people without having a clear leader. Think about it. I look on the highway, 150, 200 people on the highway, blocking the highway. 1 minute, one person has a megaphone. 3 minutes later, another person has a megaphone. And then you got 20 other people out there with megaphones, and they're all out there chanting, trying to get cadences. I'm like, who in the heck are the leaders down there? That is why people look at you on TV. They know you're not really organized. The only organized, I don't want to be polemic in saying this. So I'm trying to be careful with my words. The only organization that people can really say about Black Lives Matter is how well you all can use Facebook and other social media to gather together to get on the highway. Is that how you want to be known for your leadership? And another thing, Black Lives Matter. You have this whole thing about trying to be non-ideological. You have this desire to be non-ideological. All movements have an ideology. You can't sit here and be so much against the system, so much against concepts of the system, in the system, so much against sociology and social sciences as it relates to leadership and movement, and get out here and think you don't have some kind of an ideology. Identify yourselves, have an ideology. You can't be out here and be against every concept in this system, because you have to work within the system to advocate and organize and make change for the people you're trying to help. So this whole desire, I don't care what movement you're in, young people. I don't care what movement you're in. If you're at work, your job has an ideology. Every organization, every movement has to have an ideology, because if you don't know where your ideology is taking you, your stupidity will lead you anywhere. If you don't know where your ideology is taking you, your stupidity will lead you anywhere. Somebody say that with me. If you don't know your ideology, stupidity will lead you anywhere. You see, because you're just out there organizing, and I look at Black Lives Matter, you know, the only media attention you get is anything that's negative. Anything that's negative. And the reason that is because you lack the sociology of leadership that's needed for change. And one of those most important concepts is being able to build constituency. If you have no constituents at the end of the day that you can sit down at the table with and prepare the table before you come to it to talk to people, if you have no constituents, how are you going to really bring about any kind of community advocacy and change? It's not going to happen. Black Lives Matter. So get this out of your head that you have no ideology. Get this out of your head that everyone can be a leader. You guys know how disorganized you look and how alienated you look when you're out there and 20 people got megaphones And one moment this person's yelling something, another moment this person's yelling something. You all look so disorganized. I'm not being polemic, but you look so disorganized. You put yourself in this cacophony of nothing. People that are out there just in this cacophony of being angry and wanting to shut down highways and just wanted to cause a disturbance. When people are able to label your movement with those kinds of negative connotations, it takes away your meaning. It takes away your value. It takes away your worth. There's a direct relationship, activists, with sociology and leadership. Another thing, and if I appear frustrated, I'm not. I'm only saddened because Black Lives Matter, you could really have a strong movement. You could be one of the most powerful movements today to get things done in our community if you listen to what I'm trying to say to you. For example, shutting down highways? I understand. If you march down the street where legally they tell you you can, well, no one's going to pay attention to you. I get that. So the only way that you can really get the attention you want is to disrupt. I mean, you don't get the attention you want if you're walking down walking down the street on a sidewalk, just peaceful, doing what you're supposed to do. You don't get attention like that. But when you shut down the highways, you get the attention that you want. I get that. However, what are you doing after you leave and the police chase you away to tear gas you? What are you doing the next day? No one hears about you for a while. Wait, let me digress for a moment. Black Lives Matter. If you truly care about Black lives, why are you not doing something about abortions? All our Black babies being killed, murdered at the hands of white abortionists. Why are you not out there protesting in front of the abortion clinics? Why is it Black Lives Matter that when a Black person kills a Black person in the community, you're not out there shutting down the street, shutting down the block, shutting down access to where these thugs are running around in our community? I just thought I'd ask that question. Back to the subject. Black Lives Matter, any young movement, anyone out there, I don't care where you work, where you're trying to organize, Black Lives Matter, at the end of the day, where is your strategic thinking? There is a direct causal relationship between strategic thinking and strategic process and outcomes. What's really strategic about shutting down a highway and everybody out there yelling on some doggone megaphones? You have to have strategic thinking. What are you going to do after you shut down a highway? What's your plan for the next day? Who are you going to meet with the next day? Who are you going to meet with in a community that can help you bring about the change that you want? You should do nothing. You should not organize without having a strategic plan for the outcome of that activity. You should not organize without having a strategic. You postulate assumptions. What is the outcome that I want from this activity that we're going to be involved in today? Think of three. If you're planning a movement, you're planning an activity, you're planning to shut down a highway, whatever it is, what is the strategic thinking behind it? What is the strategic process? What is the outcome that you want from this activity? You should have at least three. If you plan an activity, you're going to do this. What's A, B, C? What are the three outcomes we want? And how do we get those outcomes after this activity? If you lack these basic proclivities as a leader to think strategically, strategic thinking, your movement's not going to go anywhere at the end of the day. Because to have that kind of effectiveness that you want, you have to have basically four concepts. Four concepts. You have to be reflective. You have to be reflective. And what I find about Black Lives Matter and young activists today, unlike Martin Luther King Jr., Medgar Evers, the Black Panthers, at the end of the day, they reflected on their activity that day. They sat down, they criticized each other, they gave each other feedback. Who is it in Black Lives Matter? Because you don't have a leader. So at the end of the day, when you shut down the doggone highways, everybody goes home, different directions. Everybody goes home. Who is sitting down, giving the criticism, giving the feedback of what happened for that activity? Number two, active. Okay, you're active. But if your activity has zero strategic thinking that has a direct causal relationship to strategic process and outcomes, your activity is moot. It's worthless. It does not mean anything at the end of the day because the activity really has zero status. Another thing that you have to be able to do, the third concept, is who's developing leaders? Who is developing other leaders? Black Lives Matter? Well, because you have zero leadership, no appearance of real leadership, no one is developing leaders. Who's developing leaders? And the fourth concept is the sociology related to a movement. The sociology related to a movement. What are your real social values? Hate the police? What's your real social value? You can't be out there and hate a whole organization. If you hate the police, you are saying the same thing that you're trying to prevent. Black Lives Matter. Don't hate black people. Well, if you preach don't hate black people, how can you preach hate the police? Hate all the police. Okay? You have to be able to say, we need police officers. We need good police officers. We need good, excellent police officers that went to school, learned to be police officers. They come to work every day with the intent to serve and protect our community. We want those police officers. The officers we don't want are those ones that will use the uniform, use the badge to come out in our community and treat people unfairly, abuse our people. You have to separate those officers. But what you want to do is group every officer into this hate, terrible, racist bag that doesn't apply. Now, here's what I say to that. When a police officer says to me, I don't want to work with that officer because I know that officer is a bad officer. Well, look, my response is, if you know that officer is a bad officer and you are saying nothing, you're just as racist, you're just as bad as that one is. So don't tell me that unless you're willing to stand up and say something. So if you lack these four basic proclivities, reflective, being active, developing leaders, and holding true, realistic, authentic social values that are fair. You lack the basic proclivities of sociology and good leadership. Black Lives Matter, young people. You have to not allow yourself to lack understanding of what is called leadership dimensions. You see, you guys are out there. You want to be leaders. I get it. But you're missing some basic concepts. And I'm trying to give you some in this short video. Some things just to think about. If you lack the understanding of leadership dimensions, you have no leadership. Let me explain myself. If you are a leader, you have to have followers. You cannot be a leader without having followers. Get that? And that is where Black Lives Matter, other young activists, you guys are messing up. You're not getting the basic concept of leadership. Everyone wants to be a leader. Nobody wants to be a follower out there. Everybody wants to be leaders. Doing your own thing. 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 200 people. And everybody's out there doing their own thing. One group's way over here, another group's way over there, another group's up here, another group's over there. Everybody's doing your own thing. Man, you look out there, you go, man, who are the leaders? Everybody wants to be a leader. No one wants to be a follower. Everyone wants to be a leader. No one wants to be a follower. Look, you all, you cannot be a leader if you don't have followers. And the only way you can have followers if you're going to be a leader is to have clear goals, have a clear ideology that will make people want to follow you. Everyone can't be leaders. You cannot be a leader without having followers. And so many times I look at leaders today, activists in the community, and you get stuck on this whole thing. You're at this impasse because you get stuck on what is called positional leadership. Positional leadership. This is my position. This is where I'm going to stand. So you lack being able to negotiate because you're too stuck on your position. Positional leadership. All police officers are bad. All police officers are racist. That's my position, and that's where I'm going to stay. And don't you tell me otherwise. Positional leadership. You get so stuck on the position that you don't compromise. You will not open to hear other opinions with at least alacrity of thought, because you don't want to hear other opinions, because you're stuck on your position. So you are unable to build constituency. You're unable to build capacity because you're stuck. You're stuck on a position of leadership, positional leadership. You're stuck. You don't want to hear any other ideas. You don't want to bring negotiation to the table. You don't want to build that capacity with other people unless you totally accept my position. I don't want anything to do with you. Positional leadership. Now, you cannot have leadership without having real fellowship. If you organize on Facebook and say, hey, let's meet down a such and such street, you get 200 people coming down a such and such street because you organized on Facebook or some other social media. And at the end of the day, when the police are throwing tear gas on you and whatever, and you're dispersing, you're going separate ways, you really have no fellowship at the end of the day. If your only fellowship is getting on Facebook, if your only fellowship is getting on some kind of a social media, and you call that real fellowship, I suggest you think about your leadership skills. If that is your fellowship, if you call leadership and fellowship being able to organize on Facebook, and that's your fellowship, I'm going to say that's your failure ship. We ought to create a ship, a whole big boat ship called failure ship. And if you are not a good leader because you have no fellowship, then we ought to put you all on the failure ship. I just made that up. I thought that was kind of clever. Anyway, let me tell you something about moral courage, young people. If you don't remember anything else that I have said, remember this. Moral courage. One of you, two of you, three of you, if there's 50 of you, which one, which two, which three is going to be the moral compass? The one that holds up morals, the one that will say this is right, this is wrong, without someone willing to take that stance to say, wait, that's wrong. Wait, that's wrong. This is right. That's wrong. What you're about to say, what you're about to do, how you're trying to lead us, that's wrong. Which one of you will have the moral courage? I don't care if you're at work, if you're organizing in the community, if you're at a meeting, wherever. Which one has that moral courage to be that moral compass to direct and lead? Which one of you has the moral courage, which is that trait that allows you, a person, to raise an issue despite the backlash that might result? I'm paraphrasing. Martin Luther King Jr. said, the ultimate measure of a man is not what he does in times of convenience and comfort, but what he does in times of challenge and controversy. Be the moral courage in your movement. Be the moral courage in your movement. Subscribe, because I will be giving other lessons in community organizing and advocacy. And in closing, once again, I got to take a cheap plug. My books, Liberal Racism Creates the Black Conservative. See it? Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. And my other book, Black Man with a Gun. Scroll down, get my email address, and I will get you a copy of my books for a small fee, signed. My name is Lucky, Mr. Lucky. Thank you for joining me. I hope you got something out of this, because my intent was not to be polemic. My intent was to give you, an activist, Black Lives Matter, other activists, some constructive concepts, constructive feedback to help you be a good leader. My name is Lucky. As I look outside, I'm looking at my grass, and I think I got to cut my grass, y'all. Yeah. So I'll see y'all later.